Wow,
Perfect. Let's get
I
into
did not
it.
know that I'm a let's get into it guy.
Maybe you don't say let's get into it. I think you say we're gonna dive right into it.
That sounds more, yeah. I can see me as that guy.
I think that's what you say.
Were you a diver in high school?
No, just swim.
Oh, you did swim though.
Swim.
Okay.
And dive. But that is, I saw a hilarious post the other day about like learning things about your spouse in quarantine, and one of them, it was like all about their work personalities. It was like, turns out I'm married to a let's circle back on this guy. And the other one was like,
Let's put a pin
like
in it.
I heard my husband like running this meeting, and I heard him patiently listen to the person's problems and recite the problem back to them and give them thoughtful feedback. Blew me away. Never seen it before.
So you do that for me?
Yeah. It was so funny. Oh man, just one after the other, just hilarious jokes. Anyway.
Okay, let's get started.
Back onto this.
Let's dive right into it.
Let's dive right into this.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
You always open us up. So.
Yeah. So, hello, listeners. Welcome back to Beyond Cube, the food system revolution. Today we have our first guest.
Woo!
Super excited to introduce Elena Rosenblum. She's the accelerator director at Union Kitchen. That's where we make all of our stuff. We partner with them. To recap, we make coffee and tea cubes. The whole idea is it's pre-portioned convenience without single-use plastic waste. So we're on the packaging and delivery side of things. We're and the point of this podcast is to talk about everything in the food system, from packaging and delivery to sourcing and even farming practices, regenerative agriculture, looking at monoculture, all that kind of stuff. So today we're gonna get some pretty interesting conversation.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
We'll see what comes out of it. By the way, my name is Levi Redcross. I run the social media for Clerks Cubes. Keep in mind that you can find us on Instagram and Facebook. Right now we're running a poll of whether we should change the mango lemon from black tea to green tea. We're trying to play around with that, and of course we want your input. So please feel free to hit us up on Instagram or Facebook, or send us an email at chris@clarksfoods.com.
No apostrophe.
That's right, no apostrophe.
No apostrophe. Don't put
No,
an
yeah.
apostrophe.
Not
Because you will not be
email
reached.
address.
But anyway, what are we talking about today? Today we're talking about the Food Accelerator. What the heck is a Food Accelerator?
Yeah. So Lena, what do you do
All
at
the
Union
pressure.
Kitchen? Yeah.
So the idea behind Food Accelerator, as we see it at Union Kitchen, is providing the resources that people need to get to market faster and to be able to make less mistakes so they have to spend less money. So we've built a kitchen where you can learn to produce. You can speak to that a little more.
Definitely.
We have our distribution, which gets the products out into stores, so you can start learning from how other retailers are responding. Do they like the flavors? Do they think the customers will like mango tea, or are they craving just straight black tea? Who knows?
Yeah.
And then we have our stores, which is my favorite because I'm a data nerd, so I can just dig in and be like, okay, it's working, it's not working.
Queen of spreadsheets. Right here. Yeah.
Yes, Chris and I love going back and forth on spreadsheets.
Oh yeah. Good function always gets me excited.
Queries.
Yeah.
Just throwing out random words. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I don't know queries or anything like that. But I know that, Chris, you kind of seem like the kind of guy that's just like, I don't know, you seem like more of the person that gets really deep into the numbers and then spends the whole day just hacking into the system. I'm imagining you at home with just the only light in the room is the light coming off of your laptop, and you're having coffee, and you're just hacking, just trying to figure out what do the consumers want.
It's a great mental picture.
Ding.
Sounds pretty accurate too, right? So you guys are basically trying to figure out what people want, try to coach us, upstart businesses. We're brand new into this, a lot of us. Never started a business before.
Didn't you have a t-shirt business? in
Yeah,
college?
some of us, yeah.
So
Sold t-shirts.
so whenever you're taking on like new clients, which are like whole companies here, like what exactly are you looking for? And like how do you tie that back with the feedback that you get from the community, from consumers?
Yeah, so as I think everyone in this building will tell you, the product is wrong. We just don't know how it's wrong yet.
Whoa. I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
That's rough.
So what we're looking for is much more about the actual entrepreneur. You know, are they someone who's coachable? Are they someone who's willing to dig in and become an expert in what they're doing? So Chris, for example, has been working with an engineer to build out his own equipment line. You know, you've, in the best way possible, obsessed over tea and farming and coffee to create your products. So when you first came, you had like this jumbo pack.
Yeah.
It was like 50 cubes.
Like 180.
Yeah.
Way too many.
Yeah, and no coffee, stuff
That's
like
right,
that.
no coffee yet. Hadn't figured it out yet.
So it's just tweaking all along the way to figure out how can we take this really passionate entrepreneur with a good idea and shape it into something that customers want to engage with.
And it still happens. It's continuous. Like the flavors, we're seeing what people want, and then we know that you guys want bigger refill boxes, so we're rolling those out soon too.
Do you want to show the original version?
Yeah.
The cards?
The original.
It's actually.
Or like the
We are
fifth
kind of-
version?
Whoa.
We are kind of like circling back on this, or one of these were OG guys,
Yeah.
but even in this one we had way too many servings. I think this one's 72.
I've never seen one of these in the flesh. Let me touch it.
Yeah.
I'm
You can
getting.
see, I think it looks like a woman dancing or something in the cube.
Yeah.
And it's great. Obviously, we learned a lot about branding and messaging, and looking at that label, it's tough to tell what exactly it is that's in there. That was a big learning experience.
Just totally normal.
Right.
You can't really see in this room, but we're surrounded by packaging of various designs as people learn what messaging works with customers, what doesn't resonate.
What customers want.
Like Snacklins is a big brand.
Yeah.
People didn't really want vegan pork rinds, but they did want 80-calorie chips. So some of it is just messaging it versus the actual product.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting stuff.
Now, when you walked in with 180 units of this, did you feel like you were like some hot shit? Or
I still had the tins, right? I had the smaller size and the bigger size. I was like, this is it. This is what people want. But close.
Did you feel like you were like under like a laser, like a fine-tooth comb while you were here?
Well, you find yourself thinking about things in different ways that you never had thought of before, for sure. And then certain people are really good at giving blunt feedback, and that's something that most of the population is really uncomfortable with. So it's really interesting when you run into those people, and they generally congregate around areas like this, where everyone is looking for that honest feedback. They're trying to figure out what the problem actually is, and they don't want anyone to bullshit or sugarcoat it. So you run into more of those kind of people here, and you might hear things that you don't want to hear, or like aren't prepared to hear, or weren't thinking about, and it makes you go, whoa, oh geez, what did I do? But that's really the helpful part, though, is getting the blunt, honest feedback, and not getting told you messed up when you messed up, or even just hearing someone's opinion if something you're thinking about doing. It's always good to hear someone be really honest. It's hard to find.
And you can learn from each other.
That's
You
right.
see somebody else go out and do something, and then you get to learn what not to do and what to do.
Totally. So they're working with a lot of us small guys, local companies. They basically figured out what small businesses need to get started, and so they're helping us with sourcing locally, local production, getting sold locally. So they figured out a formula for helping to sustain small local business. And what I'm really interested about talking with them today is our idea that we have for implementing regenerative farming practices with our suppliers. So not necessarily owning the supply chain and buying farms and hiring farmers and experts, but talking to experts who are already out there doing this for crops maybe similar to coffee and tea, or maybe there are people already doing this for coffee and tea, we just haven't found them yet. Learning what those processes and procedures are from them, and then going to our suppliers and saying, hey, we really care about doing the right thing, from A to Z. What do you think about either even just like testing, implementing this in 1 acre of your property, or like whatnot. But anyway, trying to influence our suppliers to do this, do things the right way. And again, regenerative agriculture, the whole idea is you reintroduce layers of the natural ecosystem to start doing the work of inputs that farmers would otherwise have to spend money on. So fertilizer and some sort of pest control usually are the two big ones. And as you further degrade soil, you further rely on these unnatural inputs that are harmful to the environment and very costly. Kind of keep farmers on the hook to companies like Monsanto and company. So what I'm really curious about is, could we eventually, if we get some credibility, what do I want to do is we get some credibility in the space, implementing regenerative agriculture procedures on a large scale with our suppliers for coffee and tea plantations. So great, that works for that crop in these regions of the world. Now let's look for experts that do all the other crops in all the other regions of the world and compile this information in a database so that we have all the resources we need to help other producers who are interested in doing things a better way, a cheaper way, find what they need to implement these practices, these procedures, so they don't have to learn it all over again. So similar to what you guys helped us, you figured out the practices and procedures for helping small local food businesses get up and running. Can we do that for regenerative agriculture? And what are some of the challenges you see with that, and even just thoughts on the idea in general? Oh, more background into how accelerators work. So they own like 10% of my company, and then I would imagine that we would have a similar style pitch where we'd want 10% equity in whatever farming operations we're helping implement these procedures long term. It takes years of consulting, years of labor, years of work.
Yeah.
You need a little bit for your effort.
Feeding into the system a little bit more.
Right.
Okay, so let's kind of, in order to understand the structure of your food system revolution, see what I did there?
Yeah.
I think that the listeners need a little bit more information on the structure of the Food Accelerator, because one of the really interesting things that you've pointed out to me, and you haven't said this yet, is that the Food Accelerator does everything. I don't know a lot about food accelerators. I think that not knowing anything about anything that's going on is kind of my contribution.
Asking the questions.
It's just asking the questions. One of the things that Chris has pointed out to me is the thing that makes Union Kitchen different is that you do almost everything here. You do whereas if Chris were doing this out of some other kitchen himself, he might be packaging it he might be distributing his stuff from a different location, or he might have to get his shipments from a different location, or but you guys have all the contacts here and everything here, and maybe you can I don't know, just extrapolate a little more information from my nonsense ramblings here.
Yeah, sure. So I think that's a great way to think about it. We think about the local ecosystem, so our kitchen, distribution, and stores, as the training ground for getting you to, a multi-regional national company. So we want you to learn the mistakes with us, where it's going to be way less expensive and you're not going to go out of business is the goal. So with our distribution, for example, we know what the policies are that large distributors are doing. And so how can we leverage our local distribution with its little training wheels on and help you learn best practices now, so you're set up when you are ready to engage with the broader ecosystem around the country.
Before you ship somebody $30,000 worth of product and find out that you have to change all of your packaging.
Got it.
So even little things, right? Like barcodes, making sure you have the right barcodes on the right spot on your packaging with the correct nutrition facts. So as Chris said, you don't send out a massive order and then have that person say, hey, no, this is wrong, take it back, redo everything.
Alright.
Yeah.
So you said training wheels earlier, and for a second I was like, training wheels, like this is like this is real business, like this is really tough. And then Chris put it in perspective by saying shipping someone 30,000.
Yeah.
So we ship, or like they'll order like I don't know, like a quarter or a half pallet from me. Like if I were to go to one of the big national suppliers, like a UNFI or something like that, they're to onboard me, they'd start with probably a couple pallets.
Yes,
like
right.
That's a lot.
Of one flavor.
That's a lot of that's a lot of inventory. That's a lot of labor to produce that. That's a lot of it's a lot of cost when you start going bigger and bigger. So better to take smaller lumps earlier. Get it all ironed out before you start going bigger.
And figuring out what, again, the customer wants. So you can make the tweaks a lot faster if you're sending out a quarter to half pallet. Once you have multiple pallets out there in the world, if they don't move, you have to wait a long time to make changes to it.
Yeah, that's it. Cycle distribution takes a while. So that's the accelerator.
So
how it's structured on the local level, right?
Okay.
This would obviously have to be on a more national or almost global level
If you were to create.
If we were to create reliable supply of a wide range of ingredients. So like think of it from my aspect. If I grow to be a national producer, I need to be able to buy thousands of kilograms of coffee or tea whenever I need them in any month of the year, right? If I'm on the shelves, because if I start going out of stock or I'm a seasonal product, my distribution becomes a lot harder to keep staying in stores, get back into stores. Once you're out, it's hard to get back in, you know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the nature of the beast with being in retail stores. You got to keep shelf stocked. So as a producer, you need constant access to these ingredients all year round. So it can't be kind of like if it were to really work, it wouldn't be able to be a piecemeal process, because then you're only going to hit those specialty producers, small level producers.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to actually change the system on a wide scale. So we need economies of scale. We need to be able to hit costs for pounds and truckloads of staple products like soybeans and corn and all that stuff, which should be okay, because again, the point of regenerative agriculture is to get the ecosystem to do the work of inputs that normally cost money. So it should significantly reduce costs over time if done properly. But again, like supply and reliability of supply is a huge problem. So this accelerator would have to almost function as the CSA or the food co-op that's doing the central buying from all these either smaller producers, maybe even we could get some large producers on board. Either way, you've got to almost act as the merchant, the middleman who's connecting the producers with the right suppliers at the right times of year, to make sure there's constant supply that's available.
Why aren't people currently switching to regenerative?
That's what I'm wondering. I think the monoculture is really easy and convenient when you're going to go when you're thinking about it. Just like, I need to produce X amount of this thing, and I need to do it as cheaply as possible. Well, the thought of monoculture is like, all right, we're going to kill off basically everything. We're going to clear cut this land, kill off everything, and make it so that all the nutrients in that soil goes to producing one kind of crop. We don't want it competing with undergrowth. We don't want pests in there eating away our produce that we want to sell, right? So you're just hyper controlling that environment. Well, like, and that works really well. Like, yields go up. But over time, because you degraded your soil so much, anytime there's a storm, all your topsoil washes away. You need more. The soil quality just degrades so fast. So what they're finding is actually over the decades that yields have gone steadily down as the land gets more and more destroyed by this hyper-controlling environment, right? So I think we're kind of getting to this point where we're starting to see the negative side effects really, really starkly. I think with climate change, kind of bringing all this into view, and then even challenges with supply. Like, you can't, like, wild fish is we couldn't all eat wild fish if we wanted to. There's not enough out there. You have to farm fish. Farm fish is like kind of gross, also bad for the environment. There's still the same sort of thing. They're hyper controlling an environment. It's bad for disease, bad, so I think we've been so far removed from our food system for so long that we kind of haven't been able to see the effects. But I think the scale of basically human existence is so huge now that it's becoming impossible to ignore, and I think it's coming back into focus. And these things, there's been people, and again, this is really hard to figure out how to do this. Like, I'm no expert. I wouldn't be able to go implement these procedures myself. You know, maybe I would, but I'd probably dedicate the next 10 years of my life to doing that. But there have been people out there that have been doing this since like the 90s. And we're reaching out to you guys. We want to hear back from more of you.
Who's the guy in Virginia from Omnivore's Dilemma? Did you read that book? Did you read Omnivore's Dilemma?
No.
There's the guy in it who does the whole regenerative farming in Virginia.
I did not read about that.
Yeah.
I didn't
Is this a
read about
book?
this guy.
Yeah.
What's this book? Omnivore's Dilemma. All right, everyone put that on the reading list. I want to see comments about this.
How to read along.
I'm sure many of your viewers
Yeah.
read it.
I'm sure, let us know what it's like. Levi and I are gonna definitely have to buy this book and read it.
Oh, great. Homework.
There's another farm in Virginia though that's probably gonna come on and talk to us here pretty soon in the next few weeks, and that's Ayrshire. They're 850 acres and they're dedicated to sustainability.
Cool.
So bringing this back to like the local level, like the small man, like you're talking like big picture stuff. I'm wondering, like this. Remember the idea of the CSA, where a whole bunch of farmers get together and they say we're going to produce boxes of food for people once a week, and that'll be enough for like whatever you say. I don't know, because as a consumer, I can go to CSA and say I'm a family of 4. We usually eat this much food, and then they'll provide that much food. Why aren't people doing that a little bit? Like, I mean, I don't know, because before we started talking, you said, what's a CSA? Which is fine.
These are great questions. And it's right along the same lines of what Elena asked too. Like, why aren't people doing this already on a larger, grander scale? And I kind of hypothesized that that's just a theory, and the theory would need to be proven out. And hopefully we could prove it out on a smaller scale before we try to commit a bunch of hours and request a bunch of people's time to put some thought into this.
Because understanding the technical side of it is such a small component. It's understanding like what are the pain points the farmers are currently facing. Because even if, from my understanding, if people wanted to switch off of monoculture, you know, you have to wait, what is it, like 7 to 10 years to be able to reapply to get like organic stuff like that. And so the economics are all skewed with our regulation as well.
Yeah, so regulatory hurdles are probably a big part of it too, I would imagine. And there's no chance that the big boys who haven't figured out monoculture are in any hurry to make things change. It costs a lot of effort and money to change things.
Another book I recommend, it's called Hippie Foods.
Okay.
Just came out last year, I think. It's really good. It's all about like the back to farm movement in the 60s and 70s, stuff like that. And it talks a lot about these different things, like some of the challenges to moving it. And there was 2 main camps, one that were totally purist, and then there was the other camp that was like, hey, we can make this great food, but it has to be something that the vast majority of people will engage with. And that's actually where Whole Foods and UNFI, they talk about, they come out of the side of, we need to take something that's healthy and present it in a way that a big number of people want versus being totally purist on it and having it be a very small percentage of the population engaging with it because of price and
so many other considerations that you just can't wrap your head around all of them. But what you have to do is listen to the feedback and try to do what most people want, right? If you're gonna be successful. The fact of the matter is that probably 95% of people don't care if you're being super strict or purist over how you're sourcing your ingredients. It's just the unfortunate truth.
Or they say they care, but they're not willing to pay, an extra.
That too, extra couple bucks
for it, which we've all experienced that.
Yeah, oh yeah.
We've all been at the store and like,
Definitely. Definitely, yes.
Especially at Whole Foods.
Definitely. That's why our philosophy of competition that these guys actually taught me. It really matters when you're thinking through these visions that that a lot of us have. Is like this rosy vision that you have, this great idea. Is it really true that no one's thought of it before? Like, probably not. And there's probably already people working on this. Are they the right people? Do they have the right drive? Maybe not. There's always reasons you might fail or it might not come to fruition. But like, if it's a glaringly obvious technical flaw or like fundamental flaw that stops it from being possible, you'd be unfortunate to find that out way down the road and not early on.
Yeah.
So that's why it's important to have people like Elena to ask these questions. So as someone who wants to do this, like, what's my first step, right? It doesn't change that we still have to talk to the experts in the field, people who are out there.
Mm-hmm.
The conversation probably needs to start more around like what are the challenges you guys are facing and why hasn't this been done already, more so than, hey, how do we do this for coffee and tea, right? That's step one, like why would this not work? And step two, okay, if it's really just like people haven't bought in entirely yet, or like they're still working on a structure that works, or if it's a solvable problem, like great, let's throw our effort into it. Some like deep fundamental flaw that all these people are glossing over, and they're just idealists looking at this glossy vision, but they're missing that fundamental flaw, then it's probably not something worth putting a crazy much time and effort into.
Yeah, I think starting with just talking to as many farmers as you can.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna have the most insight.
Better input. That's the function of the accelerator, helping us think through our ideas and figure out where the flaws are, what to do next.
So we're talking a lot about building companies, and we're talking a lot about building food accelerators. How does it affect the consumer? And we started to tap on it a little bit with like the Whole Foods thing. You were just like, it doesn't make sense to be a purist and go to like the really big crowd. You gotta be like a purist and then tweak it so that we can get to a bigger audience. But like, how does that bigger audience feel about like the changes that are being made? One of the things that Chris brings up a lot is that you have to meet every single, what's the word I'm looking for? You have to do all the things that your competitor does, and then you also have to do one thing better. And like, what's the one thing better? What's a little bit of change, like from the Food Accelerator's perspective?
Sure.
Like, what, like, so I go to Whole Foods and I get Clark's cubes off the shelves. It's from the Food Accelerator. Like, I like, so what? like how does that impact, all of everybody?
So I'm gonna answer that in two parts.
Great.
The first part on adding something to differentiate it. So like with Chris, we sat down and said, okay, what are the tea and coffee space doing right now that consumers really like? Because you're not starting from zero. People are already drinking coffee and tea at their house. You didn't invent, a new elixir,
No,
right?
did not invent a new drink.
So there's things we already really like. Maybe it's the size of the tea boxes, or maybe it's that it's packaged conveniently, so it's 1 cup for 1 bag, whatever it might be. Taking the time to explore what the category has already told us customers like about it, making sure that is still what's happening in Chris's product, and then adding on to it. So Chris is adding on to it is that there's much less single use. If you're a tea drinker, maybe you don't know how long to steep the bag or whatever else. Here you don't have to think about it. So there's that side of it. And then on the flip side, understanding what not to change, even if customers want it, is an important question. So we think about it, I think we did this exercise with you, where you have 2 circles, basically a Venn diagram. On one side you have what you're passionate about, and then what people want, and you have to find the intersection. Because if it's just about what Chris is passionate about, the product would look very different, and I'm sure you'd be very happy with it. But it would only, your mom would be buying it.
Yeah.
But then if it's on the total other side, where Chris is making something with plastic bottles and it's something opposite of what he's passionate about, he's not going to feel good about it. He's not going to want to spend long days making plastic bottles, right? So it has to be something in the middle that's both reflective of what Chris is passionate about and what customers want.
Okay. Alright. So the Food Accelerator keeps people from making crazy decisions that are outside of their passion. It's kind of
Yeah, because you'll just run out of energy. It's too hard. It's too hard building a business if you're not deeply invested, and if you don't care, you're gonna quit.
Right.
And every flavor request, we get your flavor requests, we really do, and I read them. But more flavors equals more money. Inventory is so expensive. That is the reason, guys, that we're not faster about that. We will get there, though, to rolling out the flavors you ask. You just gotta figure out how to make it economical.
Roll out the roadmap.
Everyone on my TikTok is asking me to make a durian flavored kombucha.
Wow.
No.
I won't do it. Have you ever had durian?
Stinky fruit.
It is. It's very sticky. You cut it open and it smells like sewage.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe that's
That's where you don't listen to the people's requests.
It's outside of my passion.
It tastes like garlic and onion and banana.
Separately, I like all those things though.
Right.
All those things at once.
But do you like imagine taking an onion, chopping it up, and then some garlic and some banana, and frying it in a pan, and then you
I
can.
feel like the frying would at least help. Cover some
I guess I made that kind of plantain sounding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I love fried plantain.
Anyway, I'm getting away from the point. The point is, I like kombucha. I don't like durian. I'm not gonna do it for them. So.
That was the philosophy of competition you brought up, though, being as good as your competition in every way and better in at least one way.
Yeah.
So with the regenerative ag stuff, like the obvious answer is that you're doing this in a healthier way for the environment, a healthier way for people. It's even probably cheaper for the farmer for the farmer long term.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest.
Yeah, the biggest chunk, right? The biggest hurdle.
Yeah.
So maybe a huge function of the accelerator, the regenerative farming accelerator, would be to connect these people with the right the right capital opportunities, kind of people who are interested in making this change happen.
I wasn't gonna say anything.
He was looking for reassurance.
But a big guy. I think the bigger challenge, though, with it all is being as good as the competition in every other way, because you've got to have that availability of goods, the constant availability of goods.
The constant availability of
Huge
goods.
volumes.
A tricky one is definitely one I wanted to ask you about, because the CSA you don't get it.
Yeah,
you don't
you
get
don't.
constant availability,
You don't
but
get constant availability.
But you do get like the comfort of knowing that, like, you know, your honey was sourced from some guy that doesn't smoke his peas or whatever.
Yeah.
And like that's funny, but it's also like, those are also things I like actually look for.
Right.
You know?
Which is a good point. You know, there's different customers are going to want different things. Right?
Right.
You talk a lot about your core consumer. So who are you building this product for?
Right.
And so for some people, the CSA model is great and exactly what they want. And they're willing to make those trade-offs of not being able to select from 10 different types of honey if they know it's the one honey that's been done sustainably. So I think as you're thinking about the regenerative, it's less of providing everything. You know, you're not going to provide like Kraft mac and cheese ever, right? So it's understanding though what are the values that your core consumer who's going to be buying products and cares about regenerative farming need, and what is their current solution, and how can you provide everything that current solution provides plus something.
There's so many factors. So like, we wouldn't with this we wouldn't be making Kraft mac and cheese, but we would want Kraft to care about their sourcing enough to contact us for quotes on wheat flour, right? So like, wow, I totally just lost my thought in mid-sentence. But you were saying, that's right. But you have to be paying attention to the consumer, right? So it's like at the end of the day, like people have to want this for it to work.
Yeah.
For the suppliers, the producers to care, to make these decisions about maybe paying extra or having to search harder or not have as much reliability of supply, dealing with those problems while this gets built out. The people have to care enough. Consumers have to care enough so that the producers who are listening to their consumers say, oh geez, our consumers really want this. And that will make them willing, for sure willing to implement these kind of practices. But on the flip side, if you're the producer, you're the supplier, it's something you personally are passionate about, and you are a producer, there's a match there. And as a supplier, you can be the one driving the change, leading the change, educating your consumers about these kinds of things. So it can happen from both directions and meet in the middle, but it's gotta happen on both sides.
It's a cycle.
Yeah.
It's like produce, listen, digest, produce, listen, digest.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cycle, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so got
Another question, fire away.
I'm scared.
Fire away.
Dude, I gotta say, this podcast really teaches me not to be wiggly because I'm a very wiggly person. Like I'm a little wet noodle, like on a regular basis, and like this is my.
I see
That's
pasta
your
for day.
stance.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
my
I was thinking of, Kraft mac and cheese.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's all coming back.
I talked about Kraft mac and cheese because I had it last night for dinner.
Nice.
Why are we talking about Kraft mac and
Because
cheese?
you're a wet noodle.
Obviously. And next we'll talk about
Actually-
Levi becoming a pasta producer.
I have a very important question. Then we'll
Yeah.
go to your question.
Okay.
I have a theory that when you get the Kraft mac and cheese shape ones, like the cartoon ones, it tastes better because the cheese gets like stuck in there more. My roommates heavily disagree, and
Really?
like just the standard noodle.
Really?
I'm wondering if you guys have thoughts,
I could totally see how the shakes would suck up more cheese.
right?
Yeah, and hold more cheese.
Yeah.
So when I make mac and cheese, by the way, I'm vegan. And I don't like to insert that I'm vegan. I just say like mac and cheese. So if you hear me say like, oh, I'm making ham, it's vegan ham. I'm not gonna clarify every single time. Because people hate it when you bring up that you're vegan. But
Levi's vegan, he is not crazy.
I'm
There's a
not.
separation between the two.
I am not crazy vegan. I'm like, eat whatever you want. But I make mac and cheese with like penne pasta, like with the
Spirals?
No,
That's not
the big fat
Oh,
like
okay, gotcha.
cylinders,
Yeah.
so that it can really get in there. Because like the mac and cheese I make is like I don't use cheese, so I use like potato and onion and nutritional yeast and puree and
I
all.
love nutritional yeast.
Yeah,
I know it's really
dope.
That's not something you hear every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so good.
In case you didn't hear that, she said, I love nutritional yeast.
And I just talked about loving Kraft mac and cheese too.
That's
so
true.
I'm a very weird spectrum.
That is a weird spectrum. It's like 100% artificial to
I
like
know.
just like dirt that someone found.
It's like a garbage can of sheep. It's in front of me.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a good question.
Sorry for that tangent. I knew as a wet noodle you had a question.
You did have a question about being a wet noodle.
I am a little wet noodle. I didn't have a question about being a wet noodle. It is actually a relevant question, but I'm more happy with the commentary on the wet noodle than I am about this next question.
Podcast gonna end now.
If nothing else, this segment is going to end up everywhere. On TikTok, we're gonna get viral on TikTok.
I've never used TikTok. I'm sorry.
That's
I don't know if I should be.
That is a mistake.
I'm
Levi's the king of TikTok.
I'm not the king of TikTok.
Elena has never used TikTok.
You should strongly consider TikTok, and you should try to get Union Kitchen on TikTok as soon as you can.
I don't know if we're cool enough. TikTok feels like very cool.
I will literally show you one of my videos where I just sit in front of the camera and tell a story. 60,000 likes.
But you're a
Fine.
wet noodle vegan with a vegan. So that's why you're TikTok.
I didn't wear a vegan.
What I was trying to say is Levi is so much more cool factor than us.
I think you're making a mistake, man. Listen, like in a year, you're gonna be like, all right, let's get on TikTok now, and you're not gonna be able to generate the same following.
That's true. It's true.
I'm just saying. All right, wet noodle TikTok. Rewind it. We're gonna talk about the future,
Ooh,
Okay.
if we can,
Yeah.
for just a second, and then we're gonna clock out. So, what does the future of the Food Accelerator look like?
Ooh.
Like,
Yeah, that's a great question.
Ooh, on the
I'm-
spot.
I feel like I put you on the spot a lot with some of these questions.
These are juicy questions. That means it's a juicy
Yeah.
question.
Like I
Yeah.
didn't want to do like the whole so what thing, but like I felt like you had the power.
The thing. Well,
What's the future?
clearly on our development roadmap, we'll be creating a TikTok following.
Yes!
Once we've accomplished
A
that.
whole kitchen full of wet noodles.
Do the wet noodle dance. So we're actually opening another production facility, which Chris knows about.
Yes.
We're super, super excited. It's gonna be probably about double the size with much larger equipment, bottling lines everywhere, and it's gonna be beautiful.
Oh.
So our goal really though remains
How many times have you cried over this idea? Like
so many. We have a little like virtual thing you can walk to see in it, just on the laptop. It's like a video game. Yeah.
Ooh, that's really cool.
And it's actually really funny. You like have to properly take up the elevator, otherwise you'll like fall in a hole. And you're like, "Ah." It's cool. So we have our new kitchen. Everything we're doing is focused on building businesses faster. So we're going to open more stores, gives us a larger data set, gives us more cash flow, so businesses can make better decisions for buying more from them. Yeah. Outside of that, the world is our oyster. We'll learn about it next year on TikTok.
Yeah. Next year. Levi's dying inside.
I can't wait for
He's
this
dying.
TikTok.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for this thing.
Yeah.
I'll follow you.
My first follower.
Yeah. All right, guys. I think that's a wrap on this podcast. That was a lot of good juicy stuff. Definitely drop some comments in with your thoughts and further questions. We'll get back to you on them.
Yeah. Keep in mind, if you don't want to watch us, I know like we are beautiful, but if you don't want to watch us, if you happen to be in the car, don't watch videos while you're in the car. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and Stitcher, and wherever else you listen to your podcasts.
Yeah. Mash that subscribe button.
Oh yeah, and smash the like button, as the kids are saying.
Yeah, smash the new term.
It
Yeah.
smashes like the term from last year, I've been told.
What's the term this year?
It's
Stan.
Stan. S-T-A-N. Stan on this podcast right now. Like I don't even really know what it really means.
Yeah. No one knows what it means,
Anyway.
but it's provocative. It gets the people going.
I think we're gonna cut off right there. Okay, so Stan, so like Stan and like all these other things that people are coming up with all come from like black lingo, and so like literally like African American lingo. Like, I don't have to say African American. And like when I hear them, like I kind of know what they are, but I also kind of feel like they're almost right.
What was the one you said before? Stamp?
Stan.
No, the one before that. That you said was the
Smash.
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 No, that was a white guy.
Wait, what's white terminology?